Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome today to the live session of Let's Talk About Market. Uh, in the previous session, the Nifty index did break below the previous low, and that's where the downside possibility of uh, 24 450 to 24 500 sort of levels opened up. There are some interesting insights today because a lot of sentiment and diffusion indicators, they have either gone to oversold or they are suggesting positive divergence. Now, what does it mean for the market and how do we interpret it? That is what largely the discussion will be for today. So let me quickly share my screen. Someone please confirm if you are able to see my screen. Sorry. Are you all able to see my screen and hear me properly? A confirmation message would be okay. Great, great. Thanks for the confirmation. So now let's come quickly to the Nifty index. Right from the start, what we have been talking about is this. So, firstly, honestly, I was not expecting the 40-day exponential average to break. Okay. But once that broke on the downside, that's where a bit of concern started creeping in. So, over here, basically at this point of time, when the 40-day broke, even then, there was an anticipation of a bounce back. That is because many of the extreme short term readings had gone to oversold. So at that point of time, actually I was expecting a pullback at least towards these point, which was if we take the 61.8% of the fall from year to year. Okay, that was the point, till which the at least the pullback was expected. However, we did mention that the previous high of 25 250 will be important, and actually it did not break above that, and after that it again corrected. Okay, then again somewhere over here, okay, many other indicators started turning. They started getting into oversold zone. So that's where, again, if not anything, a bounce was expected. And so the bounce did came by, but again it did not sustain. Now the problem is that many of the people would be thinking that these indicators don't work and so on. But just to give you a context, uh, indicators are, you can say, uh, like yeah, indicators will tend to give you those early signals of turnaround. You need price action to confirm that. Okay, supposingly, even if someone would have shorted, to bear a bounce of 20, 200, 300 points in between, it might not be an easy trade to take. Okay, that is what happens when basically the sentiment indicators come into oversold zone. So you get pullbacks from time to time. A better setup is one when the sentiment indicators points out towards overbought zone and we are still in a downtrend. If that happens, then it ends up becoming a good signal. So we will talk a bit about that today. Okay, but firstly, when we come to the Nifty index, analyzing Nifty index, it has actually come at an important support level. So we have been talking about this. So the only thing, that I had also mentioned was that I don't know if this support zone will be tested or will we turn around from here or so from higher levels. But basically, after some up and down, the Nifty index has almost got there. Now the issue still is there. It has not exactly touched that support level. So say the actual support level is 24 473. Here the low was 24 462. So that can leave some doubt that whether there will be some more bit of pullback and one more retest and only then things turn around. But the one good part is that the momentum indicator has stopped falling, which means that on the downside, the momentum is losing its steam. So what happens that if at all you're driving a car and you want to take a U-turn, you will slow down and then you will take a U-turn, right? Which means your speed will slow down and then you can take a U-turn. So similar thing can possibly happen over here. So this decline is actually losing the speed. Okay. And now if the turnaround has to happen, so if at all you end up seeing some gains over here, we might see the Nifty index giving a bullish crossover. So once it gives a bullish crossover, it's not that we are out of the woods. Basically, we would then need to break above the averages and break this resistance level. That will be the point where basically all your major resistance will be broken on the upside. Else, what might just end up happening is that if this is a medium term correction, which is going to go much lower, I mean, which can drag the Nifty index much lower, then you might end up seeing something like this, okay, where we see a pullback over here and then again there is this slow grind that we see, and that is how, I mean, a painful correction can happen. So we will monitor the moves from time to time and see how is it behaving. But yes, I mean, that is what it looks at this point of time. Now when we combine this with the sentiment indicators and the diffusion indicators, so that's where it gets interesting. So because even in Friday's trading session, the market was down, so FIs went ahead and and they shorted more. But because this is a new expiry, and so their long percentage has actually now dropped to 8.60. So the lowest ever that we have seen is was, I think, somewhere in 2023, which was around this phase, that was 7.75. Okay, and after that we ended up seeing a good rally on the upside. Now whether this happens or not needs to be seen. But as I was speaking a few days back as well, there are a lot of parallels that I can draw from here. Basically, if you see the positioning, okay, over here also what had happened was that it came to oversold zone over here only. After that there was a pullback, and we thought that maybe the bottom is made and it can rise higher. But there was one more new leg on the downside, which got the oversold reading all the way to the below this below this red line. And at that point of time, okay, this was the lowest ever reading that we had seen. Okay, and after that we ended up seeing a good rally. Now you know over here also something similar happened where it came back to the minus, I mean, the second line on the downside. After that we saw a pullback and there was one more large decline that we saw before we ended up seeing a good rally from a medium to long term perspective. Now because this is happening, okay, I mean, over here this was the all time uh, low. I mean, this was record shorting that was seen over here. Then this got breached on the downside. So the question may arise that is the range shifting, I mean, all those questions might arise. But at this point of time, given that the data and the history we have, so that is why these days I have started talking about percentage long as well. Because percentage long, it doesn't I mean, it doesn't matter with the absolute figure, but if the percentage is short, so you think of it this way, that you can create 100% of the position, okay, and beyond a certain point you might not be able to go short. That is because you might have crossed a certain limit of shorting, right? So that is what seems to be happening, that if we go by the percentage long, so now it is 8.6%, and this is the second lowest reading that we have ever seen, okay, from whatever data that we have. So that is the second lowest reading that we have ever seen. So that is one. The other thing is that in swing, what we have actually started seeing is a divergence. So which means, think of it this way, that the Nifty index is making lower low, but the swing is making higher high, which means the momentum of many stocks are higher at this point than at this point. Okay, which means that possibly either they have gone up or they have stopped falling the way they were falling. So this hints of a turnaround. Now the only issue is that swing and average swing is very fast. I mean, swing especially is very fast. So even 1 or 2 days of up move, and it can go to 80, 90. And that's where looking at average swing might also be of some help, because this is relatively slower. Okay, and someone in, I think, 2 or 3 days back, when we were doing this session, someone also pointed out that when we get a turnaround from average swing, it is a little bit more sustainable than the daily swing. In daily swing, the pullback that we get ends up playing out in 2 to 3 days. But in swing, it can be a little more, say 1 week to 9 days, sort of move that we may end up seeing. So that is where average swing comes into play. Now, the other thing is the diffusion indicator. So even there, the percentage of stocks above the 20 SMA, that dropped all the way to 12. Okay, so over here it had touched the first line, so I thought that maybe this is good enough correction that has to happen, and it turned around. But after this, one more low was made, and the reading dropped to almost around 12. And this is happening, across the index. Some may say that, okay, if that is the case, then but what about 50 and so on, right? So over here, it is grinding lower, but it is still not to oversold zone. So in my experience, 50 will come in an oversold zone when you are, going to, when you will be getting into a deeper correction. Okay, but I think this is not really a deeper correction. The reason why I say that is because if you see on the weekly chart, okay, this is like a higher top, higher bottom ka low over here on the weekly. So we haven't even broken higher top, higher bottom structure on the weekly chart. So that's where, trying to call it as a big correction, and where we end up seeing these, I mean, these indicators like percentage of stock above 50, 100, 200 SMA also around these levels. This will be probably, I think, too bearish at this point of time to call. Uh, but yes, see, if 24 450 gets broken on the downside, and the Nifty index starts sustaining below that significant, every time it tries to recover and face resistance over here, then I'll be very worried, to be very honest. Okay, but at this point of time, when we are above the support level, maybe this is not the point at which we should get extremely bearish. uh, Over here, I would tend to think that we should look out for opportunities. And it is not just this, but say percentage of stock with RMI buy. Okay, over here also, we are seeing a positive divergence. You can see over here the prices are going down. Okay, so the broader point is that a pullback at some point should be possible, and it might not be just a 1 or 2 day pullback, but a little more sustainable pullback which can maybe last for 1 week, 2 week or so. Such kind of pullback is likely. Once that pullback happens, and these indicators end up going to the upper end of the range, that's where you need to be a little more careful, and see what the price does. And especially if all this indicator goes to overbought and the Nifty index is still below 25 250 or 25 300 sort of levels, then we surely need to be a little more worried and watchful, and monitor very closely that is this just a bounce, and are we again going to sell off, or what. This is something that we will get a very clear idea once we get some sustainable pullback. But 1 or 2 days pullback is not something which I call it as a sustainable pullback. But at least a pullback, say somewhere over 25 200 300 sort of levels, that will be a sustainable pullback. And once we get there, and then we need to assess how the indicator is. Okay, only if we are, say in a free falling market where we start slow. So basically, we start slow but then we start falling. That's where these indicators in the short term will tend to diverge. I mean, will tend to see a lot of divergence, and you know that may not help. But as I mentioned, so for that, to think these kind of correction where initially we correct slow and then we start correcting sharply, for that, at least this 24,450 needs to be broken. If that is not broken, then I would tend to think that maybe a short term bottom could be in place, and if not a up move, at least a pullback should be in place, and that pullback should provide us the next opportunity, whether it is on the upside or the downside, that we will see. Okay, but somewhere around this range is where a fresh assessment should be made, whether to go short or no, and or are things really turning around. So that is there. And I was checking the RRG as well. So in terms of sectors also, so far I was checking, almost all of them are going down. Only FMCG is the one where we have seen just a mild turnaround. Okay, that too on the daily chart we have seen a mild turnaround, but apart from that, most of them are heading lower only. So far on the index level also, I'm not frankly getting that great clarity. And the the not so good part is the weekly, where momentum for many of them is slowing down. Okay, almost for everyone it is slowing down. It is just FMCG, consumer durables, and pharma, where we are seeing the momentum and the relative strength also increasing. But apart from that, almost everywhere the momentum is falling. So that is not really giving me a good picture. So need to see, basically, at this point of time, I'm not able to correlate everything, what may happen. So that's where at least the initial thought is that we might end up getting a pullback, because many of the sentiment indicators are telling so. Once we reach to that point, that's where we will be starting to analyze more deeply, as to which sectors are actually going to outperform. Because understand one thing, when the FI's positioning is extreme short, okay, and we have ended up getting a rally, the rally has been 15-17%, on an average. So if you if you see over here, okay, we got oversold over here, we got overbought over here. So if you take the actual, sorry, so if you take the actual price action up move, it was 23%. Okay, from here again, if we see, so I'm taking only till this point because that's where the overbought happened, but it was 18%, right? Then from here, you can see till here, it was 18%, right? Over here also, so the overbought had happened somewhere over here, again 14-15%. So the point is that almost around 15 to 20% kind of move we end up getting. So that's why, at this point of time, especially in the sectors, we are not getting that greater clarity. FMCG is the one which is sort of looking up and giving some indication of a turnaround. But the other sector ka weekly momentum falling is not a good sign. So at least, so we'll watch on a day-to-day basis and we'll see if we are getting any clue or no. But that's about it. I think that's all I have for today. And yes, the other thing is that even the 20-day AD ratio, these have all come towards the first line. Now, one can argue that why can't they come to the second line? I mean, that is very much possible. So that's where I think, we will need to wait for those confirmations. So on for those confirmations on the hourly chart, we would first want a closing above the 40 hour, And the other thing then is that we need a closing above this trend line. Okay, so we'll have to go it level by level and see it. The ultimate reversal level would be somewhere around 25,300 to 25,200. That is the ultimate reversal level from a medium term perspective. I think once that is gone, I'll be a lot more confident in telling that this corrective phase is done and we are possibly heading higher to say 25, 26,500, 27,000 levels. But for that, 25 200 to 300 zone, that needs to be decisively broken on the upside, and it should be sustained. Okay, so I think that's it from my side. If you'll have any questions, we can take it up, especially the conceptual questions if you have, or if you have a doubt that how will the sentiment indicator behavior happens if this happens, or you can give us some scenario. I can uh, try to explain it with whatever I have seen in the indicators. So any questions? Okay, I'll wait for a minute. If you'll have any questions, then I can address it, else we can wind up for the day. View on sectors on very short term watch. So this is what Devesh I mentioned. Actually, in RRG, the issue is that all of them, almost the momentum is falling over there. So that's where they are not really giving signs of a turnaround yet. Especially if I see the daily RRG, only FMCG is the one that seems to be turning around. But also when I do Nifty FMCG, what is also happening is that this was the inverse HNS pattern which I had initially talked about. So somewhere over here it is still finding some resistance. Okay, so we need to see how this unfolds. But on RRG, basically FMCG was the one that was giving some sign of revival. uh, so yeah, that we need to see. Apart from that, see, there are other sectors that I do like. So one was, I think I was checking infrastructure also, but infra mein the problem is that it is a very wide basket. But over here also, if you see, I think on the weekly, yeah, it has come back, almost come back towards the average, and this has been one of the index which has almost gone back to the previous all-time high, right? So this was one. The other thing was auto. Auto has been consolidating. So these are all not looking up on RRG chart. Okay, so that's where I would want to see them turning around on RRG. So if you see right now, I think auto is over here because we have not seen a pickup in the momentum. It is still the momentum is going down, right? So consumer durables, FMCG are the ones where maybe you might want to have a look at it, because consumer durables on a weekly time frame, the RS and the momentum is rising, right? So over here, if you start seeing a turnaround, so then that can become an interesting index. The other one which I was telling you was infra, right? Infra is where I think I'd put infrastructure over here. Yeah, it is in, yeah. So see, it is in lagging, but there is some revival in the momentum. So we need to see this trend a little more to play out. So that's where then we can say that maybe infra could be bottoming out, and and we could be rising higher. And there was actually one more observation I forgot to mention. which also actually supports the idea of a bounce. So if you see the weekly chart, this is Nifty index. So one, two, three, four, five. This is five consecutive negative weekly close. Okay. See, one might argue that in terms of percentage terms, it is not that significant. But in the past, wherever you see, there are usually you know, four candles or so, and we get a pullback eventually. So here we ended up getting some bit of pause, and then again we declined. But also over here, the last when I had found was somewhere over here in 2022. So it was one, two, three, four, and five, and then we had a decent pullback, and then there was one more leg of down move. So, but otherwise, you see over here in any of the candle, it was, I think, three candles or four candles where this fall happens. In fact, I can just see over here. This was one, two, three, four, and five. Okay, this five correction. I mean, five candle ka negative close happened, and then there was an up move. So that is what we are seeing right now, and all this is happening above the averages. So it's a good enough indication also to think that somewhere over here the bottom could occur. Now, whether it ends up becoming just a bounce or a new move, that is an ongoing thing that we'll monitor. But at this point of time, given the sentiment indicators, it indicates that there are good chance of a medium term bottom as well. But it's just that we need a lot more confirmation in terms of price action to happen. uh, Sagar, see, I don't want to get into specific stocks. We have uh, I mean, in this past few sessions, I have shown many ways to analyze the stock. I think you can do it on your own. Bank Nifty, if you see, so Bank Nifty may the only problem is that we are not so far seeing signs of a turnaround. So yeah, maybe it is above the 20 week, but if you see the daily chart and all, uh, you know, basically the Bank Nifty index sustaining below the 40-hour exponential average is not a good sign. When these two averages are taken out on the upside, okay, that's where you can say that now a new move can happen. Otherwise, there is still a risk that we end up seeing a pullback and then again a downside. So that is the risk, of course, in the Nifty index as well. uh, but yes, at some point of time, I would tend to think that because Nifty may there is a pullback that is likely, and Bank Nifty is a bigger component within that. So even in Bank Nifty, a pullback can happen, but watch out for this averages, which is the 40-day exponential and 20-day average. Okay, that's where we might end up seeing some sort of resistance, and if that breaks, then I think there is a good hope of almost Bank Nifty ending the correction and making a new high. How to make a view and to identify intraday? No, Gurdeep. So there is honestly nothing. Uh, there is. I don't think there is any way to figure it out. And to be very honest, actually, my strength is not intraday. I mean, if you talk of more positional, I mean that's where I can help you with. Intraday is way too fast, and there is a lot of noise that is involved. So yeah. Shishir, I guess, yeah, yes, Shishir. We got this feedback from people. I even tried it. Um I think, see, as I told you, I mean there are some issues that we are trying to address at this point of time. Uh, okay, so I'll tell you the quick fix. How what you can do. So see, in the scanners, because even I was trying to do, I think there are some things that you are not able to scan it. So say for example, if we have gone to heat map, We will definitely resolve this issue, but right now I am just giving you a quick fix, how we can do it. So say for example, you want to find all the outperformers, right? It is this. Okay. So now what you will do is that, so say these are the stocks where you which you want to put it in your watch list. So it will be somewhere around 900 stocks or so. uh, so somewhere over here, mm, say I put a watch list of outperformers. So I'll tell you where the issue is happening. I also checked it on outperformer 4th August. Okay. So you will be able to see it over here. Okay, this 898. But I think when you go to the scanners and you try to filter it on RMI, only on this watch list, it might show you no rows to show. Outperformer, 4th August. Okay. So, okay, here we are actually able to see. So there is, I think, from some module, uh, was price action. So then I think maybe this. So say for example, I'm trying to find stocks that are above. So let me create this. I think it was happening in one of the module, stocks below 100 SMA. If you create the watch list and I put all of them, okay, and then when I go to RMI and only select that, maybe it is causing an issue. Yeah. So see, you can see over here that no rows to show. I think this is happening in the technical scanner. We are already testing this module, and I mean for that 1 minute live. I think once we go with that 1 minute live, the other issues should also get resolved. But at this point of time, as I mentioned, we will fix that. But at this point of time, the easiest way is that whatever watch list that you have made, okay, just click on export, make a CSV of that, okay, delete this watch list. Okay, make a new watch list saying stocks below 100 SMA. Okay, once you do make this watch list, just import the file which you earlier downloaded, the CSV, and it will come over here. Okay, so now you can see that all the stocks have come over here. Now when you go to the scanner, when you go to RMI, and now when you do stock below, sorry, just give me a moment. We did make a watch list right over here. Stocks below 100. So this is coming somewhere in the middle. Okay, over here the basket is not selected. Stocks below 100 SMA. So now you will be able to see it over here. So the only thing is that what you might have to do, Shishir, is that once you get the watch list, especially from the technical scanners, if you have scanned it, okay, just go to the watch list, right? Just go to that watch list, download the CSV file, delete that watch list and make a new watch list again, you will be able to see that. So in due course we will even fix this issue. But this is the workaround for now. Just wait for few days. That is because we are just moving the entire technical section to 1 minute delayed data. Okay, so after that, these all bugs we will yeah, solve it. But as of now, just please try to do it this way. You will be able to do it. In case if you still face any issue, please let me know. We will try to fix it whatever is possible at this point of time. Because if we try focus on this one, the other things that we are doing, that will get delayed, and that is more important to get over here. Okay, so that is it. Then any updates on 1 minute valuation? Yeah. So Sam, as I mentioned you just now, we are actually in this testing phase of the 1 minute. There are couple of indicators where we are getting some issues, so we are rectifying that. Once that is done, there will be initially the focus on solving bugs, like we saw it in the watch list, and those bugs that will be solved. And once that is done, we'll work on the fundamental scanners and try to make it live. Okay. Is it better to judge market tops by looking at Nifty 500 or Nifty 50? So uh, good question. I mean, it actually depends, honestly. So what I try and do is that I try to figure out what is happening in Nifty, because sometimes, see, what happens is that uh, if people who are purely investing into small and mid caps, they should ideally track Nifty 500 or mid cap or small cap. But if the Nifty index is itself looking good, then there is a good chance that other indices might also follow suit. So sometimes the divergence can happen, where the small caps underperform the large caps and so on. But we try to take a view on Nifty and then try to think what other things can do well. Because if Nifty is going to do well, then somewhere or the other something will be doing well. So that is where we would then want to focus. So that is our approach. But honestly, there is no straight answer to this. Okay, it depends totally on individual. So yes, I think that's it. That's all the question that I have. So it's 11:37 now. I think we can wind up this session, and we'll see tomorrow. How things unfold. So let's catch up tomorrow. Uh, शिशिर says मैं चाहता था कि आरआरजी में निफ्टी 50 के स्टॉक्स दिख जाए, then it will be easy. So Shishir, that is already happening. If you if you go to RRG, for example, यहाँ पे आप निफ्टी 50 टाइप कीजिए, you get all the stocks of Nifty 50 over here, right? So this is actually the one of the problem with RRG, where we are trying to restrict it to 50 because it takes a lot of time to load. So these are all the Nifty 50 stocks that we are seeing, Shishir, over here. So any watch list where it is, any index where it is more than 50, we have restricted it for now, because of the speed issue that we see. It takes a lot of time to load and it becomes very messy. So it doesn't solve any purpose. But you should be able to do that for the Nifty 50. Okay. So yeah. So that's about it. Thanks a lot for joining today, and let's catch up tomorrow and see what the Nifty does and whether the pullback sustains or no. So thanks, and see you tomorrow.